Welcome to the Ground Investigation podcast. Today I'm joined by Dr. Sebastian Lobo Guerrero, a geotechnical project manager at AGES Inc. and an adjunct lecturer at the University of Pittsburgh. With 24 years' experience, he's an expert in deep and shallow foundations, earth retention and landslide stabilization, shaping major infrastructure like highways and bridges. He's also a prolific author with over 250 publications, a leader in the ASC Geo Institute and Deep Foundations Institute, an ASC Fellow and Lifetime Award recipient. Sebastian continues to drive innovation in geotechnical engineering. Sebastian, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's awesome to be here.
No, definitely. Thank you for taking the time. So can you walk us through the journey into geotechnical engineering and what drew you into the field?
Yes. That's a long story. I'm trying to make it very short, but yeah, I think I got into civil engineering in general because of my family. I grew up in Colombia, in Bogota, which is where I study in civil engineering, and then have the opportunity for my graduate school to come to Pittsburgh, and since then stay here. But really, everything started as a kid. My dad was a civil engineer. My grandfather was a civil engineer. As far as I know, everyone in my family for his side has been a civil engineer. So I grew up with this admiration and some sense of prestige of being a civil engineer. I think I didn't even know that there were other professions that you could be beside a civil engineer. But I like that. As a kid, I like to say that my family were civil engineers. So I also started going to construction sites and things like that with my dad at a very, very young age. And it got exposed to this beautiful world of civil engineering that I really wanted to go into that. However, I didn't know that geotechnical engineering existed. My dad was a contractor. I mean, he did his degree in engineering in Colombia, but he started in Colombia, but he finished in the US at Purdue University. But at that time, he wanted to go back to Colombia and establish a practice in Colombia. So that's what he did. So I kind of grew up with the admiration for that, but I thought I was more into construction rather than design, right? And I thought that what I was looking as landslides and bridges that my dad was constructing, I thought that was just construction management rather than a geotechnical field itself. So when I went to college and I started taking classes, keeping in mind that I thought I was going to be more into construction, I ended up taking geology and then eventually soil mechanics. That's almost like 27 years ago. And I absolutely fall in love. And I think during the soil mechanics class, when we were talking about consolidation, that's the moment that I knew that's what I was going to do the rest of my life. You know, I mean, it was. And then since then, I started becoming really involved, even at the university level. I was TA, the teaching assistant for over there. And then I came to Pitt when I was doing my master, and I was running the soils laboratory at the university, obviously doing my PhD. I spent 5 years there doing all kind of things in geotech, and then I started working in consulting. And during the last 20 years, pretty much, I've been working at the company that you mentioned, AGES Inc., American Geotechnical and Environmental Services, where I have been in charge of the lab, and also I have grown into a senior geotechnical engineer or senior project manager, which is what I do today. That's on one side of geotech. Since I was in college, I was presenting and going to conference and stuff, and I was lucky enough that I end up in a place that I also see value on that. So I continue being very active on professional societies, as you mentioned at the beginning, doing all kind of work on this, and also I love teaching. So that was another. I say that I have like 3 jobs all at once. So that's when I also got involved with the university and I started teaching as part of the adjunct faculty. So that has been my life so far in geotech engineering, which has been really pleasant.
Sure. Funny enough, the last guest I had, Andre Silva, he said it was the soil mechanics which did it for him as well. Once he took the soil mechanics class, that was it.
That's the one that convinced you.
Yeah. So that's the both of you.
Struggling to find top geotechnical and geoenvironmental talent? You could use a generalist recruiter, or you could use a specialist. At Geo Expert Search, we place experts where they belong. Across the UK, USA, Australia, and New Zealand. No highways, no bridges, no structures. Just geotechnical and geoenvironmental. Now and forever. Geo Expert Search. Finding the right people for the right roles with no wasted time. Visit geoexpertsearch.com to learn more.
So, what are some of the most rewarding projects that you've worked on in the last 24 years?
Man, that's a loaded question. So I'll give you the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Okay.
I define rewarding in different ways. I mean, I think most people will tell you rewarding is successful project,
Hmm.
but I'm a fan of learning, and sometimes
Okay.
you learn not by a successful story. Many
Yeah.
times, and really the good learning, the most impactful learning is with mistakes.
Hmm.
Sometimes your mistakes, sometimes other mistakes. From the rewarding, beautiful, all good. We have, I was involved in a project. I mean, since pretty much the beginning of my career. In a, it's here in Pennsylvania. It's the Susquehanna River. It's a 14-span bridge, right? And it has the two abutments and then all these spans and the piers are all in drill shafts. And we designed the drill shafts. And as I said, I mean, I was involved since preliminary engineering, then during the investigation, then during final design. This lasted for a long time, and then construction consultation. These are some of the most impressive drill shafts that I have designed in my life, and it also it matches a time in the deep foundation industry around 2014, 2015, when we completely changed the philosophy. We used to do, without getting too technical, on deep foundations, on drill shafts, we used to only design either with side friction or with end bearing. And around this time is when new documents from Federal Highway Administration were coming, and especially the work done by Dan Brown and Associates, Dan Brown himself. We were starting looking into options to combine side friction and end bearing. And we started doing the design of these shafts only with side friction. Then the new codes kind of came along while we were doing the process. We looked into it and we were able to cut the shafts from, let's say, a certain length to 1/3 of that length, which sounds
Okay.
insane, right? Just to cut the socket length that much. But it was a result of the new equations. And as a result of that, we developed a comprehensive, bidirectional load testing program to show that we were doing this and it was valid. The client at that time obviously had some concerns because it was such a drastic thing, but they
Yeah.
saw and they trust us. We did the program, with the testing, we demonstrate that what we were talking was true. And I would say that really from that point in Pennsylvania transportation, it changed the way that drill shafts are done. So that's one of the most meaningful and good ones that I have done, in the sense that it's a success. It
Hmm.
also gave me the chance to travel the country and the world, showing these low test results and things like that, and it made me very popular. So I like that, of course, and I got a lot of good exposure with articles that I
Yeah.
wrote about it. So it's all good memories. Another one that is good memories in a different respect. So that to me is like a big construction, right? It's a big project
Yeah.
that every time that I cross that bridge, I will remember that I was part of it.
Okay.
Another one that goes into more the, let's say, the academic part of me. When I was finishing school, it's a recent project, but I'm going to give you the introduction. When I was finishing school, I realized that even though textbooks are really useful,
Hmm.
it's all about the design codes, right? Like, we can talk about different references, but when it comes to design applied to specific locations, you have to follow the specific codes that are there. Either it's AASHTO, the Eurocode, whatever we're using, you cannot design, because there is obviously implications with the law, right? I mean, it's a law that you have to use this. So I became a really good fan of design manuals. I started getting familiarized with Federal Highway Design Manuals, with AASHTO manuals, with Army Corps of Engineers, with the NAVFAC manuals. And I start collecting them, which is a very unique hobby when you are in your 20s. But I start collecting manuals and PDFs and things like that. Later in life, probably about 8 years ago, I
Yeah.
have the opportunity to be invited, and as a project, basically be one of the co-authors for the state of Delaware Bridge Design Manual, the LRFD Bridge Design Manual. And that was extremely rewarding from the intellectual point of view, because as somebody that has been a big fan of design manuals, becoming the author of one of these, it's a very personal thing.
Okay.
Not only I have the chance to be, not only we grow this manual for about 2-3 years, the sections that we were doing, the geotech sections, but I also have to be one of the, with the instructors of the implementation of the manual. So we train people in Delaware State, the DOT, but we also train consultants that do design in the state of Delaware. So that was one of the most satisfying. So all this is good, and now it comes the one that is not that. It's positive, and definitely is the one that I will remember forever. But it's not as positive. It has a more negative connotation. So
Okay.
there was a bridge in Colombia that is called the Chirajara Bridge. It's a bridge that was being constructed. It was going to be one of the biggest and most relevant bridges in Colombia. I was not involved on any respect on design or construction or anything.
Okay.
My involvement started in January 15, 2018. I will never forget that date, when this bridge collapsed during construction. Unfortunately, as the result of the bridge collapse, 10 people were killed, right? It could have been a lot more than just 10 people, because they estimate that they have between like 100 and 150 people actively working on the bridge. It was two abutments, two piers on caissons, and they were just coming with the two, from the two sides, and the beams were gonna merge in the middle. I think they were only like, I don't know, 30 feet away from merging. Um, the collapse happened during lunchtime. Most of the people working on the bridge were having lunch, so they were not on the deck of the bridge. That's the reason they didn't die. Unfortunately, 10 people, were on the deck, and the collapse, they died. Probably one of the worst deaths that you can imagine. I mean, it's basically free falling from a height. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but imagine something like 400 feet in free fall. So the way that I got involved is because when this happened, I got contacted by different parties and different teams that were coming together to do a forensic investigation of why this happened, right? And have the opportunity. This was special to me because I studied in Colombia and I grew up in Colombia. But after I came to the States to do my master and PhD, all my professional experience is in the US. So until that day, basically I used to go to Colombia maybe once a year or twice a year, but it was for vacation, right? And visit family and friends. So having an opportunity like this was very unique, and it was very positive, because for me, and in the sense of it reconnected to the country. I had the opportunity to work directly with the Minister of Transportation, the Minister of like the let's say the director of the most important infrastructure agency in Colombia too. It gave me a lot of relevance. It connected me to local universities. Obviously, everyone asked me to do a presentation about this. I couldn't, because all the non-disclosure agreements that I have to sign and things like that. But I was saying like, okay, I cannot give a presentation about this, but I can tell you, I can teach a class on caissons or anchors or whatever, right? It also my name really got popular in South America at that time. This was 2018. It opened doors, and it forever changed my life, the way that after that, I have had so much positive things coming from Latin America and South America. It connected me to a lot of people that probably would not connect me. However, it's very sad because 10 people die. So one of the highest moments of my career is the lowest moment for 10 families. So how can you be happy about something like that? Now, why to me is special from the technical point of view? Being involved in a forensic investigation like this, it teaches you so many lessons on how mistakes are done in engineering and different things. And again, because of lawyers, I cannot tell a lot of the lessons that I learned, but in general, as a macro level, seeing these kind of catastrophes, it put things in perspective of what things can go wrong on day-to-day basis, on QA/QC procedures, in design principles, in pressures of clients. I mean, it's all kind of things that definitely teach you lessons. It's just a shame that it was that way, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's often a way where something bad has to happen and then lessons can be learned. And rather than
Yeah,
along the way, sometimes there's not enough pressure. But once something like that happens, it's definitely looked into a lot deeper, and hopefully lessons are learned and not to be repeated again.
that's the whole point. Yeah, exactly.
So you've achieved some incredible honours in your career, including the ASC Lifetime Achievement Awards and named as an ASC Fellow. How do these achievements resonate with you personally, professionally, and also how do you actually find time?
Thank you. Yes, it's funny because, like, I see the reactions from people, like in my family and even at home, on these awards, and
Yeah.
I think this is one of those that the person that appreciates them the most is just me.
Hmm.
And that, I mean, I'm very aware that I'm unique and different than many people, in the sense of geotechnical engineering and civil engineering has been my career, but it has been my life. It has been
Yeah.
my hobby since I
Yeah.
was at a very young age. When I realized that I was really so passionate about engineering, this became everything to me. And when I came to Pittsburgh, I was a 22-year-old boy with long hair. I guess hair at that time, forget about long hair. I have full hair.
Yeah.
So, so I came like as a young person like that. And then since that moment, I started studying my master, but I become involved with ASE as a student. Similar later on with like Geo Institute and the Deep Foundation Institute. And keep in mind, it's a person that is just trying to get into this, and I'm going to these meetings and meeting all these in my world, these are my celebrities.
Yeah.
I know people my age at that point, they were admiring Zinedine Zidane and other players. I couldn't care less about those players in soccer and the English Premier League. I was all about education and Harry Paulus and Everett Hook and Ralph Peck, and those were the names that I care. Those
Mhm.
were the names that I was following on magazines and stuff like that. So from somebody that comes from a smaller country, a great country, but a smaller country in the world, to come to the US, and seeing that you pass from being a student into achieving a lot of these things,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? It's the happiest thing that you can have in the world. I'm sure many people have received lifetime achievement awards from ASE, and I'm sure for them it means a lot, but I
Yeah.
can guarantee you that for nobody it means what it means to me, right? So because to me it's the accomplishment of dreams that I have for 30 years, right? Or
Mhm.
more. So
Yeah.
so that has been awesome. I mean, I'm extremely appreciative to the people that nominated me to all those things in recent years, the DFI President's Award, the ASE Lifetime Achievement Award, Civil Engineer of the Year for the Geo Institute in Pittsburgh. I'm very grateful to the people that nominated me, that saw value on that. I'm very grateful to the people that elected me into that. And yeah, I mean, it's great things that I don't take, light. I mean, it means, for me personally, it's accomplishment of many dreams and goals that I have in my life, but it's also fuel to keep going. And in particular, the Lifetime Achievement Award,
Mhm.
when I receive it, I say, I'm probably the first person that is getting this award that is not retiring, because people get it and
Yeah.
retire. And I said, unfortunately, the plaque did not come with the check that I could
Yeah.
retire and stop working. So I am
Yeah.
forced to keep working, right? Which is
Mhm.
not forced, because I love what I'm doing. I say, but I'm probably going to be the first person that is going to go for 2 life achievement awards. My
Yeah.
first 25 years of my career, and then the next 25 as another one. So that is the goal as of today on the ASE one.
No, that's fantastic. I was just thinking, yeah, lifetime, you've got so many years left to actually work in the industry, and you're
Yeah, I hope,
clearly
right?
passionate about it as well. So, no, that's fantastic. And to be surrounded by it, and then go into the kind of the industry in which you were surrounded by, brought up with, and to not be looking at footballers and the celebrities in more the conventional sense.
Hmm.
I mean, that's unique even to begin with. So, deep foundation to one of your specialities. Could you explain their significance in infrastructure projects and share some interesting challenges you've encountered?
Yes, so deep foundations is an interesting subject, because that was one of the first things that I really got associated with geotech. I mean, it
Yeah,
was landslides and deep foundations. I remember the first day that my dad took me when I was 6 years old to see a pile driving job, right? And I saw the piles and being driven in the ground, and imagining you can have a building resting on that, or you can have
yeah,
a bridge resting on all that. So I started in that, but at the time that I started, at the age that I started, it was a very crude, rudimentary science or field. I mean, a driven pile, a deep foundation, basically what it means is that you don't have enough bearing capacity at the ground surface to have like a footing, right? A shallow
yeah.
foundation. So you are going for looking for better opportunities, or better strata,
Like
very
top of the rock.
better bearing capacity at a deeper layer, right?
Hmm.
So when I started growing up, at the projects that I saw growing up, it was very rough and very basic. You drive a pile, right? So you just put an element and you hammer it, and it goes to a good strata. Or you do a drill shaft, which is just you do an excavation, right? You pre-drill, and then you put a steel and concrete, and you have
Yeah,
your pile, your bore pile. When I was in university, things were changing. It was very exciting. There is many concepts that were around for years, but because the world didn't really have the capability to develop them, they were not yet popularized. And I'm talking, for example, pile driving analyzer, right? I mean, in the 90s, pile driving analyzer was still, I mean, it started earlier by PDI, but it was just becoming really popular, and it was gaining acceptance. So now we have ways that when you drive, we can know capacities of piles, not only with an empirical equation, but with some scientific method to get that.
mhm,
I also saw the first micropile job that they were doing in Colombia. My foundations professor took us to that, and he said, this is the first micropile job being in Colombia. A federal highway was coming out in the late 90s with manuals for all kind of deep foundation systems. So it was a very exciting time. Then it coincides with my PhD. I ended up doing in my PhD studies of fracturing of grains around, in sand around piles and relaxation. I
mhm.
actually have the opportunity to visit the UK a couple of times, because I presented at the University of Nottingham. I was in Cambridge too, visiting professors. Probably the publication that I'm the most proud in my life, or two of publications that I'm more proud in my life, is in GeoTechnique, which is published, it's published by the ICE, which the Institute of Civil Engineers for me has always been the biggest temple. If I have a weekend in London, that's where I go. I don't care about the rest of the city. I just go to ICE, which is a stretch. I love the city too, but ICE to me is the first place that I have to go and take my selfie and all that. So yeah, so I mean, even in my university days, it was great because I was modeling with discrete element method how grains were breaking and things like that. And then I started working, and I started doing more the foundations, and I see how all these revolutions are occurring. And now I'm also working with them, right? And little by little, as I was describing on the first example of a very successful project, then I became part of the change, right? And then I became part of the people that are leading this, and I got very involved with the Deep Foundation Institute decades ago, and I started becoming part of the committees, right? And then we talk about the advances in the industry, and we found research from universities to investigate certain things. So it's been great. I mean, I know you cannot see my desk right here, but it's like I have like DFI logos everywhere and stickers and all kind of stuff because I surround by the stuff that I love in life, and these are the things that I love. I think you can see some of the stuff in the background, which is some plaques and some stuff from all these
plenty
societies.
of things in the background as well. It's nicely decorated.
Mm-hmm.
It's very apt as well. So, how do you see advancements in materials and technology shaping the future of deep and shallow foundations?
It is great. Part of what attracted me a lot to the Deep Foundation Institute is that DFI has a slogan that it's finding common ground. Basically, it's an association that one of the priorities is we want to integrate the industry. Why it is important? Because when you have an industry like Deep Foundations, you have different players. So let's just think who are the players. You have for example, the market that I represent, which is designers, right? So I design the foundations, right? I do a subsurface investigation, and then I design the piles, the depths, and the project on that level. Then there is going to be a contractor that is going to construct it, right? So contractors have means and methods. They have machines. They keep changing, right? So they keep evolving. They keep getting better and better.
Yeah.
Same way that I keep getting better and better in optimizing designs. Then you have academia. So that's a third market, right? So you have designers, contractors, academia. Academia keep advancing the understanding of principles and how we do this, right? And it pushes into this and also provides the next generations, right? So it's extremely important to have them involved.
Yeah.
And they do research, right, at a laboratory level and many times in field tests too. So it's a crucial part. And then we have a fourth sector that in many professional societies are not always appreciated, which is the suppliers, right? Somebody has to supply the steel that you use. Somebody has to supply the rebar. Somebody has to supply the centralizers, the concrete, the additives, all this. So what DFI does is that it tries to put a common ground for all these markets and other markets that I have not mentioned. It tried to put a common ground on that so we can all work together and we can all go as a unit. So when we go to this conference, the DFI has the national conference once a year. I was chair of that conference twice in my life, which is also a great honor that I have. But we also have another conference like Superpile, for example, and then S3 that we do periodically. IFCE, when we join with Geo Institute, with the Pile Driving Contractor Association and the Drill Shaft Association, and we come together. And in these conferences, you can see how we are changing this industry and reinvented it year after year. From the design point of view, probably we are the ones that advance a little slower because we just react to what they are doing. From the contractor point of view, it's insane how they keep optimizing and getting machines that are 10 times more powerful than they were 20 years ago and keep going with all this. From the academia, of course, it's extremely important how this information is now included in typical programs, geotech programs, like the classes that you take these days on a geotech masters are very different than what I took.
Yeah.
And then from suppliers is probably one of the ones that impressed me the most. We keep coming with these insane concretes with super high strengths that are even cheaper than the ones that we used before. Steel keeps going up in yield strength. Corrosion protection keeps getting revolutionized. The whole market of temporary stability of drill shafts with with slurries and with polymers keeps advancing and advancing. It's very exciting to see that when I started my career in Colombia in a drill shaft, I used to have, as a student, I used to go down the hole after excavation with a harness and just try to like punch the sides of the drill shaft and say, yeah, it's good, and do the same thing. Now we have, we have, thanks to GRL and PDI, we have all kind of things. We have laser tomography, and we have radar to do like sonic caliper, and we have cross sonic logging, and we have thermal integrity profilers. It's like there is so much stuff that it just gets the quality of these shafts are better, and that was what I referred on my initial example. We are cutting down these days. We are doing rock sockets that are 1/3 the length of the rock socket used to be, because we have so much good quality control that we can stand behind the products that we design, and we can optimize things.
Definitely, it's kind of the advancement of science and humanity, kind of all bundled into one, really, isn't
Oh,
it?
absolutely, yeah.
So you co-authored the State of Delaware Bridge Design Manual. What was the
Mm-hmm.
process of creating it, and what was the impact it had on infrastructure projects?
Yes, it's very nice, because the way that it works in the US is that for transportation, you have different level and different agencies. So the first step is the Federal Highway Administration. As the name said, it's a federal effort. They do research into these technologies as they evolve, and they publish what is called the Geotechnical Engineer Circulars. My good friend, one of those persons that I admired for many decades, and then I became a good friend. My good friend Jerry DiMaggio was the Federal Highway Administration chief engineer, and that was
Hmm.
one of the efforts that he put in his administration like 25 years ago. He developed these manuals. He put the funds, and he wanted to develop these geotechnical engineer circulars. With time, these circulars became, and they are all available for free online. You can just
Okay.
Google them and download them. So he developed these manuals, and those are the ones that I started collecting even when I was in Colombia. So you develop these manuals, and they become kind of like codes, but they are not codes, because they are not enforced by law. Then the next step is AASHTO, is basically, the American Association for Highway, and Transportation and Construction. They take the research that has been done by Federal Highway Administration, and they adapt it to make it as a code. So now it is a code. Now it's a law. If you are designing a bridge in Cleveland, Ohio, you have to be in accordance to AASHTO, because it's a
Okay.
public road and it's public infrastructure. So that's a second tier, a second level. Then comes the state, and the state says, okay, the Department of Transportation said, I understand, I'm going to follow AASHTO, but my state has special conditions that maybe other states doesn't have. If I live in Delaware, for example, I live in Pittsburgh, but if I live in Delaware, I'm dealing with a lot of coastal deposits that somebody in Denver is not dealing. So I
Yeah.
cannot apply AASHTO the same way. So
Okay.
these states develop their own bridge design manuals, or their own manuals, where what they do is you look at FHWA, you look at AASHTO, and you say, we accept these equations, we accept these methodologies, but we have these modifications, right? That's the important part, that you have to be very familiar in the local practice, that you have to design with AASHTO, but with the particular manual of that state. So what we did in Delaware was that. What we did in Delaware was basically, we spent years talking to the DOT, Department of Transportation. We look at the projects that they have. We look at the failures they have had in the past, uh, projects that have not gone the wrong way. We talk to the folks on maintenance. What are the issues on the design, on the performance of the structures? Just to give you an example, one of the complaints that we hear a lot is for the abutments, they were seeing a lot of rotation on abutments,
Okay.
on regular design of abutments, typical retaining walls. And I'm not talking after a year. This is 30 years, things like that. So then we were looking into that, and it's like, how can we put all this in the manual and try to improve it? It also gave us the opportunity to include new technologies that were not included in the past. For example, I'm a big fan of ground improvement. So we were talking about ground improvement, ram aggregate piers, stiffening elements. We
Okay.
open a lot of doors for new things that have been around in the industry that were not included before. Uh,
Okay.
so the satisfaction was trying to bring all the knowledge that you have from things that you have seen, and try to do, but also understand that these particular plays have different constraints. Something that they struggle a lot, for example, they call it running sands, which is liquefiable sands during
Yeah.
excavations. Uh, they see that in construction often, and they develop some empirical solutions. But then we were trying to document all these, and make it into like a design step by step, that a contractor or a designer could anticipate these conditions in
Mhm.
excavations, and address them. So it was really satisfactory on that. Obviously, the training was also satisfactory, because I mean, it's nice when you can explain all the work that you have been doing for years, and
Mhm.
explain it to the engineers and the officials from the state, and say, this is the vision that we have, this is what we think can help you on your designs, and to have better quality products in some respect for the future.
Sure, definitely. So, as a leader and former chair of the Pittsburgh ASC Geo Institute, what advice would you give to young engineers aspiring to leadership roles in the industry?
To be involved early, to start your involvement early. I think many people think that, and I'm just, I mean, just because you are in the UK right now, I keep
Mhm.
going back to the ICE.
Yeah,
Many people think that these societies are for other people, that
yeah,
that you don't really have to belong, that you can just go to a meeting once in a while, and that's okay. I mean, you can do it like that. I have plenty of successful colleagues that do it like that, but
hmm,
all these societies really are done for all of us to come together and not only celebrate our profession but advance our profession, right?
yeah,
uh, the younger that you get involved and the sooner that you get involved, you will enjoy many, many years of seeing the benefits of being in these societies. I mean, it helps you from many points of view. From the technical point of view, it's going to help you tremendously because you're going to be, I mean, I'm a big fan that education doesn't stop the day that you finish your degree. Education is forever and you will never stop learning. It's just that you are completely in charge of your education after your degree. And these societies provide all that education. You can be up to date into the technologies in the field, in the projects, in any issues that are going around. You will have events, classes, seminars, lectures. So that aspect is important. But there is a huge aspect of networking that is also key.
yeah,
This will connect you to peers, it connect you to potential clients. It will also help you to establish your name in the industry.
hmm,
I am not a person that changes companies. I mean, I've been 20 years with the same company,
yeah,
but I have seen many people that goes to these things and start growing in the industry, and it helped them land another job, other
yeah,
opportunities. If they are not happy at a job, this could be a great potential opportunity to see what is your next opportunity, right? So, and also in the last event, but it's one of those that I know for me may be different than most people. I love these societies because of what they represent. So it also gives you a lot of satisfaction to be part of it, right? To feel that
hmm,
you are part of that. It's a symbol for your profession. It's a symbol for what you do with your life. So I always encourage to do it.
yeah. No, there are many different sort of things to the reasons to go for the reason you said. Networking is definitely a big one if it's a career move you're looking for, or just to meet the right people for something in a few years' time, or to be sort of inside the circle rather than knocking on a door from the outside is a particularly good thing as well. So, how do you
Mhm.
balance your role as project manager, lecturer, and contributor to professional organisation?
Well, I hope I manage it. I guess that's not for me to say if I manage it well or not. But no, I mean, I that's the other thing because I honestly have like three jobs, right? So I mean, I do my full time job.
Yeah.
The one that provides the most, of course, is being a senior project manager at Aegis, uh, and doing that projects. I mean, that's also the one that probably gives me the most satisfaction because it's the one that I've been doing for 20 years and is the one that get things constructed and things like that.
Hmm.
That being said, the teaching aspect for me, obviously, it's great. I really love it. I love to be involved in academic programs, right? I mean, I love being an adjunct professor, being
Hmm.
able to be a mix of somebody that is teaching, but I can offer you the theoretical part, but I can also bring you 20 years or more of experience in actual physical projects. And I think that's what the university see on me, that they see the value that I can bring on that. I love being around students in the sense of there is nothing more pure and true, transparent than a college campus in the sense everyone that is taking these classes, everyone that is working in this project is because they want to have a life in engineering. They
Yeah.
are they are looking forward to the next stage of their life when they graduate. So everyone is trying to, in some respect, find those opportunities. And that's something, it's great because at that point is the true knowledge of things. As you start working in industry and all that, there is all kind of politics and dynamics and clients. We all need clients too, right? So
Yeah.
there is budgets. You have to keep track of budgets, and even though, I mean, I didn't start studying this because I wanted to keep budgets and look at weekly invoices and hours that people charge, right? It's
Yeah.
part of the management side of things,
Sure.
but that was not what I wanted to study. That's not even what
No.
I learned in school, because what you do really doesn't
Yeah.
master that part. But in university, none of that exists. Is the true knowledge. I mean, running a lab in a university, everyone is just excited of learning how are these tests and understanding soil behavior. So I love being also on that aspect. It gives me a lot of joy.
Hmm.
It also pays, obviously, doesn't pay as well as the consulting side, but that's a whole different thing.
Hmm.
And And then the third part is with professional societies doing this committee work and organizing conferences, speaking at events. I love traveling around the world. There is nothing better that you can give me than an invitation to go to a place that I have never been and give a talk on geotech. I do that very often. I have been blessed to visit many, many countries and cities and meet the geotech professionals of that area, learn from them. I mean, if I always say it when I'm giving a talk or something like if I'm going to be there, if you have a project close by, I would love to go and see foundation systems that you use, to see the local soil, to see the local rock. Geotechnical engineering is such a local practice that you may think that you know a lot, but in reality, you are really constrained to the conditions that you have seen in the past and the geographic location where you are. I mean, I know the principles apply everywhere, but every place that I know in the world have some special condition. Either it's it's a very, let's say, highly plastic clay, let's say London clay, or if you have the red beds in Pittsburgh, or if you have the phyllites in the Andes Mountains in Colombia. There is always some kind of tricky situation, and going into these presentations and events, it's always for me a chance to learn a lot from others and kind of keep expanding. So that's great, and it's great memories. I mean, I have made some of the best friends that I have in these trips, right, in different professional societies. So yeah, it's awesome. Now, how do I do it? I guess the secret on that, I don't know. I mean, for me, geotech is everything. So it's easy when you combine your hobby and your career, because then it's basically family is the priority. Family is the top, right? And then right after family, all this is at the same level. And something that I said is when you have excitement and you have the energy, things happen. If you want something to get done, give it to a person that is busy. Don't give it to a person that has time. I know it sounds absurd. If you need something, give it to the person that is busy, not to the one that has time. The one that is busy, get things done quick because there is a lot more waiting to be done. The one that has nothing to do, just drag on that forever because there is nothing else. So I think being busy and being loaded the way that I tend to be in the last few years, it's very efficient and very productive. Another thing that helps me a lot is I think after the pandemic, we have all these, technology help, like what we are doing right now, right? I mean, we will not be doing this a decade ago. So that also helps me stay connected, even if I'm traveling and things like that. I can still be connected with the team at the company that I work with, and then make sure things are moving in the right direction. And so yeah, I'm very blessed that I mean, in some respect, I know the pandemic was horrible for many people, so I don't want to sound kind of like that I'm not aware of. Of course, I know the negatives probably are more than the positives, but there were some positives, and I think some of the stuff that we do these days is thanks to those positives, right? The possibility of work from any country in the world and have access to the typical information that we have from like our office. It's a huge help.
Yeah, there's always some positives to come out of the negative, even
Mm-hmm.
how hard the negative may be. So, just as another kind of question, in terms of the project managing, lecturing,
Mm-hmm.
contributing to professional organizations, if you were paid the same and you could only do one, what would you pick? Probably an impossible
Okay,
question for you to
first of
answer.
all, okay, well, that's an easy answer
It is an easy.
because it's an easy answer because I have never really looked for much reimbursement or paid in academia or on giving talks and professional societies. So in that sense, I will pick design. If we're talking about you could only get paid, I mean, for me, so this is also something that is different. I'll just give you an example. When I started working for University of Pittsburgh, they
Mm-hmm.
sent me a contract, right, as a part time, and I signed it. Right, I didn't even read it in depth. I signed it and returned it and say thanks for the chance. And then the secretary came back and like, hey, sorry, I forgot to mention how much you were gonna get paid. And I was like, okay. So then she sent me a revised version of the contract with the amount. I didn't even look at it. I signed it and sent it. And then
Mm-hmm.
she came back and like, sorry, I made a typo. And this is like, she put like the amount per month, she put it per year. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, well, on the third version, I was like, we are clearly establishing that I couldn't care less how much you
Yeah,
pay
yeah,
me. And
yeah.
I'm just doing it for the love of
Yeah.
the academia and all that. Same thing with professional societies. I mean, I always, obviously, like many speakers have fees and stuff like that. I always say, if you pay my expenses, I'll go and I'll spend time with you and I'll teach you everything that I know. Uh, and I will not charge you my time or my fee. And
Mm-hmm.
typically, what I try to do with that, most organizations and more companies, when they organize these short courses that I offer, obviously they charge registration, so they make money, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there is some money that is being produced. I
Yeah, yeah.
just said cover my expenses, and with the money that you were going to pay me, I
Mm-hmm.
typically donate it so it can be converted into scholarships so more people can attend the event and do things. So the academic part for me, it goes back into what my definition of a college campus is.
Yeah.
I love doing academia and educational activities with absolutely no financial expectation, because I think is the true love for passing what you learn and the
Yeah.
experiences that you have acquired, pass it into other people that can benefit from that. And if you give me the chance that it's also in a Latin American country or a developing country where I'm from and what I represent, it's even better, because I know that I feel that I'm doing a really good thing for somebody that is basically me 25 years
Yeah.
ago,
Yeah.
sitting there to have an opportunity like the one that I have and absolutely made my life. So that's that part. So when it comes to professional societies and courses and all that, that's easy. Obviously, the money that I try to make, the way that I see it is, okay, if I'm doing projects for infrastructure and all that, I mean, obviously on that I deserve to be paid. So yeah, so that's the one that I will pick if it's regarding payment. The one that I love the most, I don't know. I think I love all equally. Obviously, I have been doing more design than anything else, and
Yeah.
I also believe that if there is no value on knowing how to design things if they never get constructed. So
Of course.
I think in that sense, also design is probably one of the favorites.
Excellent. Now, you you are doing thing. If you're donating fees back into scholarships, then you're 100% certain you are, helping the next generation come into it, and maybe you'll find someone as passionate as yourself, and I suppose someone like yourself, in a way, is worth
Yeah,
yeah,
correct.
10, I suppose, average people in the industry. So, geotechnical engineering often involves complex challenges. How do you approach problem solving when faced with difficult project constraints or site conditions?
Yes. So, okay. So I'll give you quickly something that absolutely marked my life when it comes into pressure and constraints and things like that. So without going into a viral tangent on this, when I was 11 years old, I was with my dad in a construction site, and it was in the middle of Colombia. It was in the jungle. He was the project manager for a new highway construction. So when
Hmm.
we were there, we were in a meeting in the middle of the jungle, and he was talking to the engineers. I was paying attention. In these meetings, I used to pay attention for 5 minutes, and then I was absolutely lost because I have no idea what the hell they were discussing. So I
Hmm.
stand up and I went next to the window. Next thing that I know, about 50 people coming with automatic guns, completely, faces covered and all that. They came, and long story short, they end up kidnapping my dad as the project manager of that. They kidnapped him. He was in the jungle for 3 months.
Hmm.
This was done by FARC, which was the guerrilla in Colombia around this time. It was around 1990.
Hmm.
I was not kidnapped. They let me stay there. Again, I was 11 years old. I stayed with the other engineers. Once they took my dad and they were gone, one of the engineers helped me to get, I believe, into the next city. And then from there, I guess somebody bought me a plane ticket. And then I was able to get back to Bogota.
Hmm.
My dad was fine. He stayed 3 months in the jungles. He carved a chess set. They used to walk at night, sleep during the day. He had the captors all in the jungle. He had the captures for like a little pocket knife just to carve, some chess pieces, and then he played chess for 3 months. But the whole thing that I give you this is I deal with a situation like that when I was 11 years old, having your
Yeah.
dad being kidnapped in front of you in an engineering project, right? In
Yeah.
an engineering project. This is related to civil engineering.
Hmm.
So for me, every time that we have a problem or something like that, my first reaction is like, I have dealt with more important stuff, right? If
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
doing a project here and let's say that we have a tight budget, a tight deadline, I always said it cannot be that bad as when my dad was kidnapped, right? It always put things in perspective. And I pass that information to my engineers, like, or the engineers that work with me. When they are like all stressed and all that, I sit down with them and like, okay, let me just tell you a story of what happened to me in a country far away from here. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, we can make this happen. We just need to, the most important thing is calm down. Let's break this in small pieces.
Hmm.
Like the old joke of how you eat an elephant. You just start by a little corner, right? It's like it doesn't matter the size of your problem. You just start tackling, right? And start seeing what you can do.
Hmm.
Obviously, you may need to talk to some people to apologize for delays. But then eventually, with a calm head, you are able to really solve everything, right?
Yeah.
Always keeping things in perspective. Yeah, and then just trying to do your best. I mean, the best way obviously is to avoid the situation. So
Hmm.
try to plan ahead and prevent this to even happen. Trying to identify when things are going wrong and correct them
Hmm.
at that time. But yeah, but it's always, as everything in life, I believe, is like you always have to keep things in perspective and
Yeah.
and 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 manage stress. there is a say that is not completely true, but they say don't take stress, just pass it along, right? So it's important to do that. Obviously, you cannot just pass it to people that are on your same team, because that's just unfair. But it's just take the stress and see what really it is, and try to address. It's easy to say. I mean, for me, it's really easy to tell you right now. In practice, it's not exactly done like that, but it's the principle.
So, I mean, yeah, that's a fairly unique experience. And I suppose if you were stressed and your project manager sits you down and says that, like, okay, yeah, I suppose the problem isn't that bad. It must be quite unique for them to hear that as well.
Yes.
Okay. So, what lessons have you learned from calibrating with multidisciplinary teams on large scale infrastructure projects?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one, and I know this sounds like the ultimate cliche, is communication. Communication is everything. Communication
Yeah.
and planning is everything.
Yeah.
The larger the team, the more communication requires. I mean,
Mhm.
I have multiple projects that you start assuming certain things, some information is provided to you,
Yeah.
and then you start drifting away with that information, and then you go too far, and you end up almost designing the whole bridge to then realize that they changed the alignment of the bridge, right?
Yeah.
So it's very important to have constant communication. It's very important to transmit what you are doing, and if you are doing steps on the milestone steps, to transmit that, right, and say this was completed, this is the results. It's important to have these weekly calls that everyone is aware of what is going on. However, and this has become really tricky after the pandemic, we now are getting into an era that is so easy to have Teams meetings and
Yeah.
Zoom meetings and stuff like that, that now we're also having unnecessary meetings that are really
Yeah.
just
That is.
draining budget. So
Mhm.
there is always a balance of saying it's important to communicate, it's important to transmit information, but it's also important to not just have meetings for the sake of having meetings, because that's going to drain the time and it's going to drain the budget.
Yeah.
So it's important to manage all this and plan, right? I mean, the more that you plan ahead, the better. Now, it's also important to not plan ahead just as a crazy person putting deadlines that are absolutely fake, that then people get pissed off about it, because it's like, okay, you put a deadline that it didn't really need to be enforced, and now you're creating unnecessary stress. So it's like, talk to the people, have good communication, plan realistically, but plan. Don't just let it
Mhm.
go. Try to have controls, right? Try to have controls in accountability, deliverables, things like that, that you can see how is the progress being made, right? Find ways that you can track progress, both from
Yeah.
the budget point of view, but also from the final deliverable point of view, the design point of view, things like that. And also, the most important lesson is really empathy. I mean, I think the most important is always put yourself on somebody else's shoes, right? And don't demand impossible tasks the same
Mhm.
way that you don't want to be demanded of impossible tasks, right?
Yeah.
So understand what the other ones are doing, understand what you can do to help them. Like if I'm demanding a roadway engineer for some plans and cross sections, maybe I can say, hey, let me tell you what is my idea of this wall, and what is going to be the extent of the wall, because maybe if I pass this information to you, you can expedite your work, you can give it back to me, and then I can continue working on what I'm doing. So don't become just a person that is like demanding, and never really understand that there is somebody else on the other side of that email that may also, be in some constraints regarding the project.
Mhm. And going back to the kind of Teams meeting, I've got a geotechnical client, and it seems, I think it's every Thursday or Friday, they seem to have a 3 or 4 hour long Teams meeting in which they include everyone, seemingly
Mhm.
include everyone anyway. Which just takes up far too much time. People just kind of sign out mentally
Yeah.
anyway. And if you're not really required, you should you should leave the meeting at some point.
Yeah, correct,
But
correct. And
one of the ways is kind of like standing up, making it a little bit more uncomfortable. If everyone's sitting down and it's quite relaxed and you're having your coffee, it's just no, let's just stand here. Maybe stand outside in the rain, and you'll get things done much quicker.
yeah, correct.
So, what trends and innovations do you think will define geotechnical engineering over the next decade?
That's a good question, because I often think, where is next to go, right? I mean, where
Mm,
is next to go in the sense, in the past 20 years, we got all kind of innovations, right? I mean, just to give a few examples, on air retaining structures, we started using soil nails, right?
mhm.
Soil nails were initially just for like temporary things. Now it's a standard also for permanent structures. Then we even reinvent the soil nail, and we start doing hollow bars instead of solid bars,
Yeah.
and all kind of things. When you go into, for example, geosynthetics, right? We start using geosynthetics for air retaining structures, and we start doing GRS, geosynthetic reinforced soil slopes.
Mhm.
Uh, then we took this on steroids, and now we're doing, thanks to all the research that is being put by the geogrid manufacturers, now we're doing geogrids that have 10 times the strength that they used to have 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I think there is many incentives from the research point of view of suppliers, which for me, supplier is such a key part of our market. They
Mhm.
keep just inventing and inventing and inventing products
Mhm.
and variations of products. Right now in Pennsylvania, we're seeing a surge of lightweight aggregate fill, basically aggregate that is made on glass, and
Mhm.
it has a unit weight that is really low, perfect for like big embankments, so you don't have settlement problems. It's all kind of things that again comes from the suppliers. So what I think is going to continue happening is that all these products are going to continue making it to our industry. Contractors are going to keep integrating them as alternates on their designs, on their construction. Sorry, they are going to keep advancing their machines to have even better and bigger equipment. And then as consultants, we're going to need to adapt to all this. We are going to need to continue reinventing how we analyze things, simplifying things. And then academia is also going to need to continue doing research on that. So I think it's a market that is really driven by suppliers and contractors. That's my honest opinion. Even though I'm a designer, I think the true advancement come from contractors and suppliers. Obviously, with academia and consultants also going behind integrating all this, that's where the professional societies I mentioned before become really important. I honestly think that's the next in terms of the technical content. Now, something that is extremely interesting is what about the people? What about the human resources that
Yeah.
we have? Because that is a trend. I travel around the world and around the country a lot, and I love meeting with the student chapters. So I'll tell you, people have different hobbies. I'm sure, like you may have friends that go for a fishing trip with other friends. My definition of fun is that I visit the student chapters for the Geo Institute around different colleges and campuses around the US. If you are in a US university and you have a geotech program, you send me an email saying, hey, can you come and visit my program? I'll go there. I'll spend a couple of days with you. I sit with every one of your master and PhD students. I listen completely to what they are doing in terms of research because I love learning about that. And
Mhm.
then I give you a presentation, and it's a sweet deal. So that's one of my hobbies. And the people that you meet on these programs, right? They are very different than what I was when I was sitting where they are sitting 25, 30 years ago, right? It's a generation that has grown with a lot of different sets of skills compared to what I have.
Yeah.
In my opinion, a lot more power than I have in the sense of tools that they can use.
Mhm.
But that being said, it's a significant less number of people getting into geotech that it used to be. Most universities in the US and around the world see big decrements on the people
Yeah.
applying for geotech, right?
Yeah.
Why is that? I think because geotech engineering is competing to many other professions that I'm sure people also find them very exciting. So as a result of that, we have less people. So what is going to happen with that, right? We're going, I think everyone that is looking into hiring for companies and recruiting realizes it's very different. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, if you wanted an entry level engineer, you put an ad on a website, on something, immediately you get
Yeah.
candidates, right?
Yeah.
These days, you do that, it's not going to take you anywhere. Obviously, there is excellent companies and excellent people that have absolutely specialized in
Mhm.
recruiting, right? And connecting these sectors and this part, basically, people looking for jobs and the companies. But in
Yeah.
general, even with the help of all these agents and third parties, it's not going to change the fact that there is less and less people coming in the industry and
Yeah.
studying engineering. What I think is going to be really good is that as the number keep decreasing, the salaries in geotechnical engineering are going to increase because
Yeah.
it's becoming less and less easy to find it. And obviously, the market regulates itself. If you cannot find many people, companies are competing for this, and they are going to increase the payment.
Yeah.
And I think in general it's exciting because anyone coming into geotech engineering is looking at from a financial point of view, is looking at a very good time in the next few years because there is many of us interested in this. So I think that's an aspect that is many times not discussed. But
Mhm.
that's what I tell my students at the university. I'm like, if you go in geotech right now, it's a really good time to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
It maybe 20 years ago was different because it's offered and demand. Right now, there is a huge demand for you guys. And if you look for a job, you can negotiate and you can say, I want to get paid more than a structural engineer. Guess what? You have a lot more people wanting to go on construction management or structural engineering than geotech.
Mhm. No, you're right. Obviously, that I'm involved in geotechnical and environmental recruitment, and when companies put out it's not even a job ad; it's more of a job spec, and they just paste it on their website or on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll kind of write a specific job ad for that particular person and their particular personality. But even then, you still don't get many people, many of the right people
Many of the right people, yes.
coming to us. It's
Hmm.
really a case of headhunting, and that's it. And
Oh
that's the
yeah.
only way to do it. To spend the time and effort to speak to persuade, to get to the interview and have the conversation. And yeah, and there's no extra people. I think in the UK there's less and less courses as well. There's some shutting them
Yes.
down. I mean, I always think in terms of our clients in the UK, I think they should take more people from other countries. I think that is one of the ways to do it because there are some people who are skilled who just don't live within the country, and I think that is the
Yeah.
perfect
Oh,
thing
yeah.
for them to do. Maybe to go into schools. I spoke to a geotechnical engineer a few weeks ago called Luke, and he was kind of running some civil engineering classes for young kids in school, to basically get in there really young and expose people to it. And then for some, it will catch on and they really want to come into the industry. For others, it won't. But you just have to worry about those people that do, and hopefully
Yeah,
make them
and
smart.
that's really what I do. I mean, the majority of the people that we have in the company that I work for, the younger people, is people that have come from University of Pittsburgh in the last, I don't know,
Mm,
15 years or more. And I have all met them in classes, right? And
yeah,
then when I identify good talent, I always say, hey, we're always looking. And that's the way that we have brought a lot of people from the university, from my classes, into the company.
hmm,
And it's always amazing because, like, I feel that I'm recruiting as if it was like a professional athlete. It's almost to the point that I have to go and talk to their parents, and it's like, I promise that I will take care of your son or your daughter, and we're gonna give them a good. It's
yeah,
when I mean, these days we are signing people like a year before they graduate,
yeah,
already with a contract, right? And it's like, if you want to go in geotech, we can offer you a job. We'll wait
hmm,
for you 1 year, finish your studies, and then start working. It's a
yeah.
very competitive, it's very competitive to find the geotech people. So if some student is looking for some good opportunity for work and a good life, geotech is the way to go right now.
Definitely. And do you do the taking on? Do you do the interviewing of people for particular
Yes. Hmm.
roles?
Well, I
So
mean, me and other senior engineers, yeah.
So I would imagine if someone goes to an interview with someone like yourself and you so much passion, which is very clear, then you are much more likely to get them to kind of sign up to you and invest in you, I suppose, in a way as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's also an aspect. Is like, I mean, we need to sell the company, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the way that we see these days is when we get somebody interested on geotech and doing, it's we need to sell the company and say this is going to be a good fit for you. And I hope, I
Hmm.
mean, let's hope that it's a good fit for you, and let's hope that it's a good fit for us.
Yeah.
But again, this is very different than what it was 20 years ago when you put an
Hmm.
ad and you get
Yeah.
20 really good candidates, and then the power was on you to pick who
Yeah.
were you going to select. The tables have turned in some respect.
Yeah. It has. It's definitely the candidates get to pick rather than the clients or the companies now. So how do you see a role of sustainability and environmental considerations evolving in infrastructure projects?
Yeah, it's a very good and interesting question because I think a lot of efforts have gone into that direction. I mean, we
Hmm.
realize that we only have one planet, and
Yeah.
I think in geotechnical engineering that an effort has been made. I mean, there is a lot of discussion these days on the carbon footprint and what
Hmm.
technologies offer less carbon footprint and things like that. Uh, there is also the elephant in the room, which is we are an industry that is basically most on concrete and steel, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And concrete and steel are not particularly more environmentally friendly, products, in the sense that it takes exploitation of resources to produce both.
Hmm.
And then the new kids in town in the last 25 years, 30 years have been the geosynthetics, which is plastic, right? So I mean, it's not like we can have a flag and say geotechnical engineering is the most sustainable product. But the way that I see it is obviously this is necessary, right? I mean, this is
Hmm.
necessary to have infrastructure products. I think the effort is into how can we do in many levels, right? From the supplier is how can you make your operation more sustainable, minimize the carbon footprint. From the design point of view, how can you optimize things, right? I mean, try to not waste products, right? And try
Yeah.
to reduce quantities. What we were talking about, these socket lengths that we used to be this length, now is 1/3. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously there is a ton of concrete or a lot
Yeah.
of concrete and a lot of steel that is saved. So I think that conscious keeps going. But one of the ones that excites me the most is I do a lot of slope stabilization with ground anchors passive anchors or even active anchors. And we use a lot the mesh, like GeoRock mesh or McAfee mesh. It's basically a high strength steel mesh, but it's really a green product because you install this on the landslide. It's a mesh that basically allows vegetation to grow through. It allows drainage, and it's green infrastructure in the sense that you fix this, and then vegetation will cover and nobody even see it.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that's a big step forward because when I started doing this, we were just doing shotcrete. We used to put these anchors and then just like a shotcrete phase. Right? Shotcrete has all kind of products, all kind of problems too. Drainage could become an issue if you don't have like weep holes and things like that. But also you are using a lot of unnecessary shotcrete there. So, I think little by little in different areas, we keep reinventing. I mean, ground improvement, for example, we do ram aggregate piers, right?
Yeah.
Things like that is eliminates the use of steel and concrete. So I definitely think there is a trend going on that. I know many companies from the contractor point of view and supplier keep working towards that goal, which is good. It's tough, and I think we all realize you cannot just change it one day. But as long as there is an intention and a direction and a purpose, I think
Yeah.
we'll get there.
Yeah, I think it's an attitude, isn't it? If you can have the attitude, then eventually it will take time, of course, but eking away bit by bit will
Yeah.
be large amounts over time. So if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self starting out in the field, what would it be?
I'll give you 4 pieces of advices, which
Okay.
is what I always say. It's the 4 principles. I'll give you many, but the first one is the first 4 that I identified in my career are simple. The first one is you need to work hard. There is nobody that have get anywhere without
Yeah.
working hard.
Mm-hmm.
The second one that is completely directed with the first one is you need to be passionate and love what you do. That helps the first one a lot, right?
Yeah.
If you are passionate on what you do, working hard comes extremely easy. You don't
Mm-hmm.
feel you are working hard because you are really having a lot of fun, right?
Yeah.
So it goes back into your question when you say, how can I do the 3 jobs at the same time?
Yeah.
Because I love them. So I
Yeah.
don't spend, I don't mind spending more hours and stuff like that doing this. The third one, which is not as intuitive, you always need to make sure that you are being compensated fairly for what you are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't necessarily mean money. That just means that you are getting back what you are putting in. I'll give you an example. When you are doing a PhD in academia,
Mm-hmm.
you are really not being paid much. I mean, you are getting a
Yeah.
stipend that basically covers they cover your tuition, which is it's a great deal. And then you get a check that basically allows you to pay for like a room, or rent
Yeah.
an apartment or something. When I was a student, I saved all my money, and when I graduated, I was able to buy a car, but only when I finished the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not much money, but you are working really hard, right? You are working really hard doing your PhD, but what are you getting? You are not getting money, but you are getting a degree, and you are
Mm.
probably getting also a lot of publications, and you are
Yeah.
getting also a lot of presentations. So in some respect, even though you are working hard, and it's probably one of those periods of your life that you work the hardest and
Yeah.
you don't get paid anything, you are
Mm-hmm.
getting a lot of reimbursement, a lot of compensation in other aspects, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you start working in the industry, it's sad to see many people that work really hard and they are in companies that don't appreciate them, right? And the thing is, in this life, if you don't worry about yourself and looking for your own benefit, nobody else is going to do it. If
Yeah.
you are lucky, like me, that I work in a great company, that the owners are constantly looking that everyone is having a fair deal and all that, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
But there is many other companies that are huge and nobody really sees that. And you may be years into a dead end job that is paying you nothing and you're
Yeah.
doing a lot and nobody's even seeing it. So
Yeah.
it's important to recalibrate yourself constantly and think, am I at the right place? Because the easiest thing is just leave. If you are not happy, don't become one of these people that just complains all the time, but they take
Mm-hmm.
no action. If you are not happy, your heart is not in it, you need to move. It's hard to have a life if you don't have your heart on it, right? As
Yeah.
Oasis always say. Noel Gallagher and Liam Gallagher always have that line, right? So if you are not passionate about it, if you don't feel that is for you, do something else. You only
Mm-hmm.
have, regardless of religion, beliefs, or whatever, you probably only have one chance in this life. And if
Yeah.
you didn't use it on what you wanted, you wasted your time.
Yeah.
So that one is key. And then the fourth one and final one is you also need to be aware that you need to establish a name for yourself. You need to make your own publicity and you make your own advertisement and all that because nobody else is going to do it for you.
Yeah.
You represent a company and you always have to look for the best interest of the company, but you also have to
Mm-hmm.
look for the best interest of yourself in the
Yeah.
sense of if you don't own that company, you
Hmm.
could let go the next day and you're going to need to do another job. So
Yeah,
always put a big emphasis on creating your own brand, creating your own name, because you may need it, in a short future. So those are my
agreed.
4 advices that I give to the students,
Yeah,
when they are coming. And I think the first two are kind of cliche and they know it, but the third and fourth many times are not that intuitive.
it's very good advice, and it's true 50 years ago, and it'll be true in 50 years' time.
Yes, I'm
You know,
sure about that.
one of the standards of which but people always think, how do I get ahead, or how did you do that? And it comes down to you just hard work
Yeah,
is a huge thing. There's no getting out of it in business. You kind of think, well, how did you do that? Well, hard work, late nights,
yeah.
being in the office by yourself.
Correct.
It,
I
it,
mean, as you said, it paid out 50 years ago and it pays now. Hey,
yeah,
same with Oasis. They are coming back. They are doing all these concerts in the
they are.
summer,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So many years later, hard work and everything they
That's it.
constructed, it still
That's
pays
it.
off. They're going to sell millions of tickets on these things.
Exactly, they have. I think people were scrapping over all the tickets, and because they were sold, made a
I was
fortune
planning,
from
I'm a
nothing.
huge Oasis fan, and I was planning to go, and I start looking and it's forget about it, man. Everything is
Yeah,
gone and it's
yeah.
super expensive.
I think the standard was about £200. I didn't even try. I seen them when they were out in the 90s. I seen them in the
Yeah,
place
yeah.
called
I saw
Scotland.
Noel Gallagher. I never saw Liam, but I saw Noel.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. It was. I suppose I didn't appreciate them as much as people kind of do now. Sometimes you don't realize a good thing until a bit later
Yes,
on, even though they were popular. It's something I was going to go back on in terms of loyalty. I think people think loyalty is important, and it is important, but I think it's important to be loyal to yourself and your family, not
yes.
necessarily being loyal to the company. Because if a company isn't treating you well, they're not giving you opportunity and everything else, then that's the time when you are more important than whoever you're
Yep.
working for.
Yeah,
Be loyal
exactly.
to yourself. You're in charge of
Yeah.
your own destiny. You
Hmm.
can't just give it away to a company and say, well, they're not training me, they're not paying me, they're not,
Yes.
doing all those things where you want to go to. You take it upon yourself
Yeah, I
because,
mean, obviously, you have to behave ethically too, in the sense that if you are being paid by the company to do a job and represent the company, you have to be
mhm.
fair with them.
Yeah, yeah,
But never forget that you are a person beyond
yeah,
that company, and you have to look. I always say you have to look for the best benefit of the company, but also your best benefit. One is not exclusive of the other one. Both can
hmm,
go at the same time, right? And if, as you said, and if one start failing on the promises, you need to take charge and
exactly.
decide and take decisions because things are going to end up bad.
Exactly. You can't give the responsibility of your own life away to anyone. You have to take
Yes.
charge
And
yourself.
nobody else is going to look up for you. It's just you.
Exactly. Or promote you as much as you can kind of promote yourself.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's your next professional goal that you're still striving to achieve?
Oh wow,
There's
man.
many, there's
That's
many goals.
that's quite a question that I was not prepared, but I think I do have one, and it's I want to eventually be president of the ASE Geo Institute. For many years, when they asked me what was the goal, I
Hmm.
said I want to become an ASE fellow. That was one that I have for many
Hmm.
years. Now being done that and doing a lot of work on professional studies, I would love one day to be the president of the Geo Institute because to me, since I started my career, the Geo Institute in the US, I will argue worldwide it's probably the most important geotech association, and I've been working a lot with them in many capacities in conference and stuff. But one day I would love to have the opportunity to put my views and put my ideas to determine the future of the organization. I would love that opportunity.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, yeah, it's one of those things that obviously I have been working all my life towards that. If it happened, will be great. It's tough because there is many deserving people, obviously,
Yeah,
and but yeah, I mean, we all need to have goals,
we
regardless
do.
if we achieve them or not. We need to have them. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's it.
Keeps you striving. I suppose your part is a glass ceiling there, and then once you kind of break through it, you think, well, I can go to the next thing, and that's what encourages you as well, isn't it? Because
Yes, and I will be clear also on that. I mean, I'm 46 right now, and I consider myself extremely happy
hmm,
because at age 46, I already achieved many of the goals that I set myself when I started this journey 25 years or more ago.
yeah,
And I can tell you there is no bigger, I mean, you probably also have already experienced it. There is no bigger satisfaction than achieving the goals that you set up, right? And that's good because I think I have taken a lot of stress out of my shoulders, stress that I put myself on it, right? Don't take me wrong. It's not that I have a stress because my parents put that on me or my friends put it. No, it's absolute stress that I put on myself because as a young engineer or as a young person in college, I had so many dreams that it was almost to the point that I wish somebody had talked me and said, "Relax, man." You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Chill.
but it's good because I know that I am where I am because I have all that pressure and that hunger. I mean, I would summarize it as hunger. I was
Yeah.
extremely hungry for opportunities. And what is the definition of success? Success is preparation plus opportunity, right? If you
Mhm.
need to have the preparation, and when the opportunity arrives, you take it immediately, and that
Yeah.
becomes success. So so I've been lucky enough that I achieved, as you read at the beginning of this with all the stuff on my bio, I already achieved a lot of the stuff that was goals. So, but I
Mhm.
still have goals, and yeah, I mean, I'm very happy as I am, but obviously, you always want more, right?
You do, you do, and
You
I think
should.
you have to. Otherwise, if you feel that you've peaked, then it's what else is there to do? And then you would become unhappy. I think naturally most
Yes,
people.
exactly. I think the happiness will go away because then it's like no excitement, right?
Yeah, yeah. Striving to get there is usually better than actually getting there. 'Cause
Well,
once
I
you
think it
get
was John
somewhere,
Lennon, right? John Lennon used to say that the journey is more important than the destination itself, right?
yeah, yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
sometimes you don't realize that until you get there. You think, oh,
Exactly.
we need to
Exactly.
go somewhere else now, don't we? Because the journey is a bit more interesting. So, what
Yes.
legacy do you hope to leave behind in the geotechnical engineering industry?
That's you see that is interesting because I don't know. Okay, so to me there were always three areas that were really important, right?
Hmm.
One is the academia. The academia is always important. Teaching, learning, classes. I mean, I would love to be remembered once I'm gone that I was somebody that impacted the way that we do things. That my publications, are consulted, and
Hmm.
obviously, I would love to have that. I mean, I hope people remember the classes that I taught, the seminars that I teach. I mean, I hope people remember that it was a positive influence for them. That is technical concepts that maybe they didn't fully understand before, and then once I explain it, they were good. So obviously, on that aspect of academia, presentations, publications, I mean,
Yeah.
I have some goals there in the projects. I mean, I think if just knowing that I did some successful projects in the sense of going back to some very interesting bridges and things that I have done that at some point those foundations only existed in my head, right? That I
Hmm.
mean, I was envisioning these drill shafts that could go to these depths and then doing calculations and reports, and obviously with a lot of help from many people in different teams, they became realities, right? And I mean, and that's the reason I take so many selfies with the projects. To me, there is nothing better than going
Yeah.
and taking a picture with something that you put your heart on it, right? And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like a retaining wall that you design, or piles when they're being constructed, or air retaining structures. So I mean, I think the legacy on that one will be that's probably the one that is going to be the least, because I don't think anyone remembers who the hell did anything in the foundation. In the geotechnical engineering part, we have our best work, it's not visually displayed, and that used to be Howard Baker, now Keller slogan. It's like, you will never see our best work. They immediately remove it because it
Full
transmits a
cover.
very bad image, saying
Mm.
that you will never see my best work, as if I was not going to put the effort. But what
Hmm.
it really meant was all the stuff that we do end up being buried in the ground, right?
Mm.
So that's hard that it's going to become a legacy because it's like it's not visual.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, I still have the hope that some of the most impressive projects that I have done on the slope stabilization, for example. I mean, feeling that you have bring safety to public by stabilizing landslides and things like that. I mean, that one is important, and with professional societies. I mean, I think I also get some legacy on that, on the sense of helping people. Really, that's all about helping people, connecting people.
Hmm.
But the question, I said, for me in particular, is tricky. I'm sure if you ask somebody else, they probably have a clear goal. But the thing to me, what I honestly differentiate myself with other colleagues and peers, is that for me, this more than anything has been a hobby, in the sense of I admire more people than what I care about people looking up to me. In the sense of this, I started this as a college student with all these idols and all these figures that I wanted to meet, all these places that I wanted to see. And that has never gone away. One of the biggest satisfactions that I have is a lot of the people, as I mentioned before, like Jerry DiMaggio, and Alan Caden, Helen Radje. I mean, professors, researchers, designers, they have become friends,
Mm-hmm.
right? And to me, passing from admiring these people to become friends and people that I collaborate with and I work is the biggest satisfaction of all. And I think for me, that's the part that I don't think I can think about a legacy, because at the end of the day, I'm just the fan. I'm just the person that enjoys and loves to do it. I mean, if you see me in a conference, I go to a conference, I prepare, I give a keynote lecture. Most people give a keynote lecture and go home, right?
Mm-hmm.
I stay, I sit on the first row and I listen to every presentation. I probably ask more questions that I get asked, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just that love, that passion that I felt the first day that I really find that geotech was my goal. The first time that I went to a library and discovered like proceedings from conferences, the
Mm-hmm.
joy that I saw the first time that I got my GeoTechnique from ICE published and have the physical yellow copy, right, of the magazine. That's what has defined my life. So it's also a respect. I mean, if I have to summarize that on a legacy, I will just say, which is not even related to geotech or engineering in general, but it's more like, if you find your passion in life, if you were lucky, I consider myself extremely lucky that at a very young age, I identify what I wanted to dedicate my life to. And if
Mm-hmm.
you find that in your life, regardless of your age, spend every second and put every effort to enjoy that and go as far as you can. And that's probably the best piece of advice that I can give to anyone, because even if it's, I don't know, even if it's not engineering, even if it's playing baseball or whatever, if that is your true call,
Yeah.
dedicate your entire life into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there is nothing more depressing than somebody that lives for the weekend, somebody that feels that
Yeah.
work is an activity that you do between 8 and 5 or 9 to 4 or
Yeah.
whatever schedule you have, but then you really want to live for the nights and the weekends. If you live your life that way, you are going to waste it. You are never going to have fun. So you need to spend your day doing what you are supposed to mean, what you were meant to be. And I know it's easier than said. And that's what I said. I know I'm extremely lucky that I was able to find that at a young age. But yeah, it's basically, if you have that opportunity to find what you are really meant to do it, and dedicate all your life, don't second guess it. The way that I end up in Pittsburgh,
Mm-hmm.
I was in Colombia. I was taking a class. The professor, different circumstances, asked me, "Do you want to do a master?" I said, "Yes." He said, "But you need to be there in a couple of weeks." I was like, "I will leave everything behind, and in 2 weeks I'll be in Pittsburgh, and I will relocate." Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. I can go on other aspects of my life. The way that I met my wife. Uh, you know, Opportunities appear out of nowhere, and you just need to be ready and excited to take them. And if you doubt, you lose, right? If you think about it for too long, you lose.
Yeah.
So live your life always in pro of what you're truly about, and what your heart is on it. So that's what I hope people will remember. A crazy guy about geotech that just showed that if you love something too much, enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. That's it. I suppose you can obsess over it. But no, I mean it's good advice. It's good advice. So finally, is there a project, paper, or initiative that you're currently working on and excited to share that you're allowed to speak about at this point?
Yes, 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 yes. I mean, a lot of stuff. This year is gonna be. Last year was crazy with the kind of trips that I went and the corners of the world that I was invited. I have the pleasure to go to the Philippines, present at the Philippine Society of Engineers. I also got to enjoy Costa Rica, Chile, different countries in South America.
Mm-hmm.
So it was great. This year is shaping up even better. Some great opportunities are coming, great cities. So that's exciting. One of the most exciting ones that I'm looking is I'm gonna be given an award in Cartagena, which is one of my favorite cities in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and it's gonna be in July. They just called me 2 days ago, and definitely it's making my life very happy, because it's a professional society of civil engineers there that is celebrating 75 years, and they want to give me an award for all the contributions that I have done with them through different courses and different classes that I have donated in the last 5 years, and things like that. So that's gonna be very very special to be there. It's a city that I absolutely love, so I can wait to go there. Yeah, and then I mean other presentations, visiting student chapters of different sections.
Mm-hmm.
For the first time in my life, I'm gonna go to Nashville for a
Okay.
conference there, and next week I'm actually going for another one in New Orleans, which I have never
Mm-hmm.
been there. So those are exciting. In the terms of publications, yes, I mean I for people that kind of know my work and have followed it for a while, I mean, one of the areas that I have specialized is landslide stabilization with deep foundations. That's something that I mean, it was a very brand new field when I started working on it in 2008. I was already working in industry. I did a few projects that were very pioneer on that, and I published some papers that were very relevant on how to stabilize landscape with micropiles and drill shafts. And I keep presenting. That's a famous presentation. What I like to think in my world is a famous presentation that I have given, I don't know how many times in so many countries and so many places. And I always talk about the next step. I show what I have done so far as an industry, what is the consensus that we have, and then I say what is the next step. And one of those next step, without going very technical, one of the next step it's a further optimization step that I propose, and we designed it. We have been designing now for 5 years a very big project that has this, and we are trying this for the first time. So it's going to be constructed this year, and I hope that then I can incorporate that on my talk and show that as the next step. So it's great because I feel that presentation is kind of like, when I show it, is literally 20 years of building all this up. So this is going to be like the next part of the presentation, and I hope it also continues to like create this awesome, this awesome journey, as we described before, of how I have progressed in the technology, but how the technology has progressed. So I'll be definitely like, posting a lot of stuff about the project itself when it's getting to construction and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, in general, to be fair, man, I'm in such a good place of life right now that if I just continue what I'm doing, I'm such a happy person in that sense that I just hope that everything stays the same and not goes to hell. That's that, that I can continue. My biggest goal at this point in my life is to continue juggle these three things between academia, design, and public speaking and professional society, and hope that it lasts. That's what I'm putting all my money on. So
fair enough. And it seems to be working to this point. But that wraps up the episode of the Ground Investigation podcast. Sebastian, thank you very much for sharing.
No, thank you very much. It was an awesome conversation. I love talking about these things, and it's great. Thanks for the opportunity.
No, that's absolutely fine. So thanks for sharing your journey and the deep insights into geotechnical engineering, your passion, your stories from when you were younger, growing up till now, the deep foundations. It's been a pleasure to learn about your work. So if you're listening on LinkedIn, please like, share, comment. This will be a podcast release, just an audio next week. It'll be posted onto YouTube. But yeah, I mean, we look forward to seeing what you do next and your selfies on LinkedIn.
Yes, and I was going to say that. I mean, the last advice is probably LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn is the most powerful tool that I have come across in the decades. And that's the way that I keep connected with people. That's the way that we also connected with you. So my final advice or request is more like, if somebody's listening to this, please, let's connect in LinkedIn. Send me a request, follow me, I'll follow you, whatever works. And I reply to every single message that I get. It really changed the whole industry. So that's the first homework that I put on my classes. You have to create a LinkedIn account and send me a message to make sure. So, all right. Thank you very much for your time. It was awesome, and we'll stay in touch.
Most appreciated.